Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks for making your way here, for checking out the series. You know what to do if you like what you see, what you hear. Hit that subscribe button. You get new interviews just like this one sent your way every single week. You can also grab us anywhere you get your podcast from as well. If you want the audio version instead, that's Spotify, Apple Podcast, as well as NPR, WFPK.org, Consequence, or of course right here on YouTube. Anywhere you get your podcast from, you can subscribe to Kyle Meredith with. That's me, Kyle Meredith, today talking with actor, musician Ben Barnes. You know, Ben from movies like The Chronicles of Narnia. You've seen him in Westworld. More recently, in The Punisher. He's about to be in a Stephen King television show as well. And he's got his debut album that he's just released. It's called When the Light Gets In. We get to talk about all of this and a whole lot more. So let's jump straight into it. It's Kyle Meredith with Ben Barnes,
How are you doing?
especially not in the thick of touring cycle.
Oh, I know. It's quite a thing to take on the first time around, I think. I think I
Yeah.
would feel very differently about it if we were to go out again. I think I would feel very differently about it.
I mean, was this your very first big tour like
I
this?
had
Because it's the
done
debut album.
Yeah, I had done a tour with the EP in which we teased a couple of songs that I was thinking about putting on the album. I'd done a tour in Europe, 6 or 7 dates, I think. It was like
Uh-huh.
a 3-week tour, and I'd done some dates in LA and New York by them, sort of by themselves, um, but never something like this. Never the kind of thing that you think about when you think about a tour and you think about like watching Almost Famous when it came out. And when you
Uh-huh.
think about a tour bus and you think about life on the road and sleeping on a bus and being with the same people and having that family atmosphere and really pursuing this adventure together with your sort of like fellow band of pirates, you just never have I approached it like that before, and it was both more grueling and testing in certain ways than I thought, and but also so much more thrilling and fulfilling and um, rewarding than I had imagined as well. So I understand the lure.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned Almost Famous there because even as a movie, it's probably the truest depiction, as close as you can get in that fictionalized version, to
Right.
what that road is like. But it doesn't show a lot of those downtime and like there's that moment at the end after, of course, they've almost gone through a plane crash. But that moment when they're walking through the airport at the end and you just see their faces and everybody looks like death. Like I've
Yeah.
toured before. I spent 8 years in a touring band and did it, and
Wow.
and I know that feeling right there. Like the first time you come home and you try to do the most mundane chore of like going to the grocery, and suddenly it feels like you're in a different world.
Universe, yeah.
Yeah.
Even the last show we played at the Wilton just felt like kind of a dream. Um, But the most glorious thing, like I got this card from the band last night, and just everyone kind of putting down on paper that even without time and pause for reflection, they all just felt like it was some kind of life highlight, which they feel like has changed who they are. And that to me is, I mean, if there has ever been a measure of success,
Mm.
you don't need a billion streams. You don't need to sell out, you don't need to sell out the Hollywood Bowl. In terms of, for me, as a measure of success of what I'm doing with this, the 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 audiences from San Diego to Oslo, you know, singing the words back at you, holding up little cutout hearts, that they've organize between themselves. Like all of those things to me are the measures of success of making something from nothing that has connected with someone in some way, whatever way, something nothing to do with you actually.
Hmm.
That to me is the measure of why do it. And also, like I just said, from like personal experience of actually living out these dreams and having these adventures and experiences is just I can never now be someone who hasn't done that, and
Right.
that feels so that in itself feels wonderful, but it also felt wonderful along the way.
What a great way to think about that. And you,
Yeah.
and like, so to back way up, like you obviously have lots of music in your past. Like maybe starting as a musician before the acting took off and everything. You've also been a musician in a movie with Jackie and Ryan, but like to actually do it, to experience, to do what you're saying right there, to have now actually been that checked off, like and we're going back even to what you were talking about with Almost Famous, like how close is it to what you imagined way back in the day? Could you have seen
It's
yourself
going,
doing it like this?
you have to go back even further actually, because I did a movie about 16, 17 years ago, something called Killing Bono, where I
Killing
played
Bono,
like a
right?
musician who was, a sort of desperate musician who just was so desperate to be famous and to be uh, a success in that way. So I had the lesson, I had the warning sign straight away in that way. Um, and that actually on that movie is where I met my friend Hammy, who is my drummer and my music manager.
Mhm.
Um, and so to be, the reward is taking someone that has cared about you for that long and believed in you for that long, to be taking them to these like amazing places and spaces and sharing something is really cool. I think the shows actually, having done the Europe tour a couple of years ago, the shows felt, I suppose, how I imagined they would. I couldn't believe how nervous I was to mount it, and how little I felt like I knew even after doing that at the beginning of this tour. And then by the end of the tour, with the confidence with which I was able to walk onto, stage at sold out Shepherd's Bush Empire or the Wiltern or wherever else, and feel like some sense of uh, some sense of worth and value and belonging. Like, not that anyone deserves to be anywhere more than anybody else, but the idea that I wasn't some kind of outlier or circus, freak show that people were kind of coming to point at the guy who wears the cloak, with you know.
Because you
I
still have
think
to be an entertainer on that stage to some degree. I mean, you want to play these songs that that mean something, but you have to learn how to be an entertainer.
Yes, well, I think that part of it comes quite naturally. I think that part is quite a crossover with what I had done before, but also finding my way to do that in a way which I can feel good about, authentically being very much myself, which I think is the thing that a lot of people have taken away from the shows, um, is that it does feel like a family atmosphere, which I've curated on purpose by having a band full of solo artists who all perform before the show. So it feels like they know they have a connection to the people walking onto the stage even before the show started. And a lot of these things I've done on purpose because they made sense with what I have written music about, which are the things that are important to me, about encouraging people to think about how they spend their precious minutes on the planet, about feeling hopeful about things, even if they seem desperate, about finding a way to like love yourself through certain moments, and to be romantic, even if it doesn't feel like it makes sense. Like, I think you know, all of these things are things that are like important to me, and they're things that define me as like a friend to people, as a son, as a brother, as a partner. Like, those are things that I wear very front and center in my life. So of course they're the things I end up writing songs about hope, about things, So, and then the music that I love, the sort of like the old soul stuff that I love, the sort of 70s music kind of that, inspires a kind of like a soulfulness in the way that we go about doing things. And so obviously I've completely forgotten what your original
That
question
soul
was, but
thing too, that was the most, I wouldn't say it was the most surprising, but before I'd heard anything, and you hear it right from the beginning, like that soul is there. Like I didn't see it coming
mm,
because
that's
obviously,
cool.
you know, we keep images of characters, fictional or not, we keep images of characters, and you
Yeah.
have, you've played the bad side of things for a while, and to come out and just to be so in the opposite, like I guess what I'm saying is to break against image or
I
expectations.
think it's difficult for anyone to
Yeah.
to separate all the characters they've played from who they are for real, you know. And we're all just as guilty of having these sort of parasocial relationships with people that we don't know as each other. And so I think people do come in with some kind of expectation, but I can't separate who I am from everything that I have been kind of infused with and everything that I've felt passionate about. So if I write music, of course I have Stevie Wonder and Elton John and Donny Hathaway and Aretha Franklin and Queen and all of these things flowing through my heart and brain as I try to make something. But also all of my experiences lead to what I write songs about. And then my kind of like English literature brain insists that I consider Charles Dickens and W. Jordan and Dylan Thomas and all these poets and all these references and all these things which I've also loved. So it comes out of the tumble dryer sounding like something else. Sorry,
I just finished four Dickens books, so I
why?
appreciate the rest because I never had.
Oh, what was your favorite?
I just finished Hard Times,
Oh
and I
yeah.
think like Great Expectations because I was really tied to that movie in the '90s too, so of
Mm.
course I love that one. But Hard Times I think is my favorite so far. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just love that you
No,
brought
no,
that up because
please.
I'm in that world right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I sort of want to be honest about sharing who I am with people, and part of that is about being like that kind. Like, certainly the me of my 20s and 30s was about feeling quite hopelessly romantic and about loving words and learning about different types of love, even if they're not the healthiest for you. And so, leading with that Dickens quote, again, it's not necessarily very kind of Motown of me to lead with Dickens, but like if I can make those two things sandwiched together in a way that makes sense. I mean, if Prince can kind of quote wedding vows at the beginning of a song
Uh-huh.
and I guess that's a little more gospel, but like if he can do that and still be as rock and roll as he was, then I can do this.
Yeah. And then, I mean, talk about some great lines. Even this, what sounds simple. Like I know stumbling on a line like it was never mine, so never mind.
Mm.
Like I don't know what that moment of realization was for you on that one because, like I remember those being gold when you're like, oh, it just so works. And even, I
You
won't go gentle under the good. Like those quotes, like being able, as you're saying, to work that in. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it was Never Mind, so Never Mind. I know exactly where I was when I thought about that. That was one of the few songs that was sort of half written for a long time. And I was on a walk. I went back to England to surprise my dad for his birthday, and my mum had took him to this uh, national park to walk, and I was like walking for like an hour to try and find them because I wanted to really surprise him. And that hit me as I was walking. I was like, and I don't know, just never mind, never mind. Wait, I just remember when that kind of came to me. I mean, I will not go gentle into that. Good night is Dylan Thomas. We
Right.
got in touch with his estate to like borrow those, but there are other phrases that sort of actually my proudest thing about songwriting is when I come up with like a little hook line for a chorus, which sounds like some old cliche that people must say all the time, mustn't they? And then I Google it for an hour, 2 hours, and I'm like, no, this I just thought of this
Yeah, how
every
long does
time.
that drive you nuts? Because I've I won't remember it right now. I've got a line that I've been working on in my head for 25 years that I keep waiting to because I'm sure, as you said, that it's not mine. that
Never mind.
it's like this has got to be and but at this point aren't all the lyrics online of like every song that's existed? Like
It
why
must be,
haven't I
but
found
then
this one yet?
every time, every night when I'm singing this, I wrote this song called Three New Hearts, and every time I get to the line, I couldn't love you, I couldn't love you, I couldn't love you into loving me. And every time I sing I couldn't love you into loving me, I almost every night I want to get off and Google it and make sure that I didn't, I didn't hear it somewhere. But every time I do it, I think, oh, that's good. You know, it's very, you get those little endorphin rushes of when you're creating and then when you're sharing it that I love that part of it.
Yeah. And is the album a narrative? Like I read about the record being like stages of a relationship. Like when you're putting it together, do you think of it
Yes.
front to back?
I don't think of it front to back necessarily. It's a little bit messy, like all relationships are, I think. But it certainly pieces together at least my perspective of certain elements of things. And on the EP, I think I had just put the songs together that made the most sense, that were the sort of the songs that I thought would work the best together. On the album, I had more than I needed, and then when we did the cull and cut down to the songs we would put on the album, I think there was about eight. But then I also, when I was listening to it, I was thinking, well, we have these moments of turbulence and these moments of encouraging people to love you in different ways and trying to understand where the other person might be coming from, and reminding them that they deserve to be loved, and the heartbreak, and we have the kind of nostalgia, but I'm missing that purity of love song of looking forwards. So I was like, I set about to try and write one of those.
Mm.
And then I was like, we're missing a sort of more exciting, like sexy song of that time after you've met someone, but like before you know exactly what it's going to be, where you're kind of, you're being kind of driven by lust and driven by mystery and driven by all those things. And I was like, so this was also the first time when I had the album three quarters done, where I was like, I'm I'm conscious that I want this to be about all the different aspects of those kind of precious relationships, and I don't want to leave those ones out. But then the funny thing is, I set about to write this pure love song about like what I was hoping to feel in the future, and it was taken from all these different scraps of lyrics here and there. And then I finished it after I watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because I quote like three words from that film in it, and and it and it made so much sense to me. And then you go out and you sing it on the road, and you might meet someone at a kind of before the show or after the show, and they're like, "Oh, I love that song. It reminds me of my grandma," or whatever it is, and you think, "Wow, you really don't know what a song is going to be about to someone else."
Right.
But for me, I wanted it to feel complete in terms of I didn't want to leave out any aspects of a relationship, because I titled the album in this very like hopeful way about like how you how you can feel about yourself more positively after going through hard, difficult experiences and reframing them. But I was like, I want it to be about all the things I've felt in the course of the relationships in my life. So not just some of them, because this is my first album and I want it to make sense.
And for me, like all my most favorite artists, they really think about albums in that way. I know I've got Bowie over my shoulder, and of course, on and
I
on and
mean,
on. But if it's hard not to think about this as sort of from a film, from an actor mind as well, that you would approach an album like this, and maybe that's unfair, but it's still there.
I think
Like
it's actually probably less from my actor mind, because I don't feel like there's any kind of like role play in it. But it is from the perspective of someone who is quite sort of deliberate and careful and overthinks in a very not sexy, not very rock and roll kind of a way. But that's part of who I am too.
Mhm.
So to want to check the boxes and to want to feel like things are complete and to want to like rid yourself of any anxious feeling by feeling like you did the thing and left nothing on the table that you could have like filed away somewhere neatly. Like that's part of who I am too. So it would be dishonest of me to sing songs about like you are enough as you are and I want who you already are and all these things. Like if I didn't feel that way about myself too. So to try and take ownership of the fact that I'm like maybe there are moments where I feel that you're singing your songs like in Paris and there are people screaming and whatever, maybe that makes you feel a bit more rock and roll than you are. But actually, I'm the guy who's kind of looking at the album and going, I don't actually have a song that is actually about something that's looking forward perspective as opposed to reflective and nostalgic. And you know, that's also part of my like that's part of my kind of stream of consciousness. And so I have to be authentic to that too.
Yeah. So now that you've done the tour, the album's out. Do you have to put it all back on the shelf to go back into the other world? I mean, is it the trade-off at this point?
I mean, I think you always have to put everything back on the shelf when you go into any new acting role because I certainly need a clean slate to be able to think about, and I think to think about what a new role is and honestly, what that new lifestyle and adventure is like. You take on a role like the Punisher and you're living in New York and you're going to the gym every day twice and you're chatting to Marines about how they walk when they hold a gun and you're in an accent all day and that's your life while you're doing that. And then, you know, and then you go to Budapest and you're in some kind of fantasy realm with a group of 20, 25 year olds and like that's your new life. And I think you need to make that, there are certain sacrifices to be made and you need to make a lot of space for that. So I think probably musicians, I don't have the experience, but my thinking is you probably have to put the current piece of work on the shelf in order to like feel like you can write the next thing. But I know there are lots of people who work in much more messy ways than that and much more brilliant ways than that. But I'm certainly someone who was always needed to kind of clear the slate before I can take on the next
Yeah.
challenge.
Have you done the Stephen King one yet? What was that? The Institute?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we finished filming the first season of that, and I'm doing some ADR dubbing in a couple of days on it. So I'll see some scenes, I think.
I mean, talk about a world as you're talking about worlds.
Always been a big Stephen King fan, yeah. And especially when you can read the book that it's based on and read about the man that you're going to portray and then see the differences that you're being asked to shift in a TV version and trying to find a way into being that person and I often use music to do that as well. Like I make a little playlist of songs which make me feel like I felt when I was reading about the character when I was reading the book or the script. And um, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for that one to come out. I've played a lot, like you said, I've played a lot of villains in a row.
Mhm.
So to play a man with a decent moral compass is a nice shift. And yeah, I hope people can find their way to that show. I'm
Yeah.
excited about it.
Can I ask what you might have listened to get into this one?
Yes, I was listening to. I remember also one specific song. Sometimes there was a song to me that sounded like the character. Oh, which one was it? Oh, yes, it was this Nicholas Britell song, "Agape,"
Uh-huh.
um, which was from a movie of
Yeah,
the
because he did
brilliant movie If Beale Street Could Talk.
yeah, right.
But it's just like it was this tune which had like it has like a groove to it, but it had these like quite chaotic like flutes and things, which sort of to me represented this guy's like past, but also this very like this very like shining, bright, delicate future which he's looking towards. And I would just play it right in my ear. If I wasn't feeling like the character on the set, I would just hold the phone up to my ear and walk off down the street for a second and
Love that.
remind myself.
Yeah. Yeah. He also did, I think he did the Succession theme too.
Oh
And
yes, I think
yeah,
that's right. I think, yeah.
yeah, that mood. Now I like knowing that, especially when this comes out, because I'm gonna have that in my head when I'm watching you at this
Oh,
place.
cool.
So anyway, congratulations on this album, Where the Light Gets In. I didn't get to compliment you properly, and I really do
Oh,
mean it is such an excellent listen,
thanks.
and so much fun,
Appreciate
and
it.
and with all the moods and stages that you've given us. And congrats on the tour, and seriously, thanks for taking the time to talk about it.
It was such fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.